mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremony, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, Dan. My voice went really squeaky there. Oh, we are back again, and we are heading into a world that we've not quite been in yet. We've not been in the King universe yet, have we? We have. We have. That's a lie. Big fat lie. We did Pennywise, for fuck's sake.
Yes, we did, and it's our most successful episode still to date.
Thank you, guys. We are delving into the more... It's pretty grim and dark, isn't it? I mean, Dan's sign in the background does really give it away. But if people are listening on iTunes and Spotify, you will not be able to see that. But this episode is a bit grim. It's a bit dark. It does have a lot of death in it. We are doing Pet Sematary.
Yes.
Pet Sematary. And the monster in this is for you to decide and me to ask questions about. Because there is a monster in this. It's just... Which way? Which way is the monster? Who is it? What is it? We don't know. I don't know. I don't know. No. Well, I'll get the disclaimer out the way with, and then we'll crack on in to this, because there's a lot to dissect today.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Facebook group, the Discord page, or the comment section, and we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong, because we can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behaviour out of nerdism. Hit it, Dan.
Don't be a dick.
Perfect. And if anyone can hear banging, I apologise. My kittens are going nuts at the door. So, Pet Sematary. The 1983, it's 40 years old, 1983 horror novel written by Stephen King. It has been adapted into two major movies in 1989 and 2019, and has also been there has also been a prequel released this year called Bloodlines. There is no gain without risk, perhaps no risk without love, but sometimes death is better. As we bring you Pet Sematary. Da, 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 yeah.
Yay.
I quite like that one. There is no gain without risk. Perhaps no risk without love. Because this is such a topsy-turvy fucking film of you can do one thing, but don't do that thing. Don't do that, but do this. Bringing back an animal is totally fucking fine. But don't bring back a human. You can't deal with the grief of an animal.
You most certainly won't deal with the grief.
But you're going to have to deal with the grief of a human, because that person should never come back. These are the questions that lie amongst this movie, this book. I'm very, very confused. But let's get into it.
Yes.
So... we've got the 1989 movie, and we've both seen.
Yeah. We won't mention number 2, because Stephen King denounced it, so shall move on.
I didn't even look into it, because I just saw the cover poster and went, no.
No. Well, I will quickly summarise it up. Edward Furlong, Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown is the only saving grace to that entire film, because he comes back, and that's that, really.
Okay.
Stephen King watched it, or he read the synopsis. It was one or the other, and he went, no, take my name off of that. I don't want anything to do with that.
Good for him.
So they had to take his name off. So, yeah, so 2, in my opinion, is not sitting in the King verse as it sits at the moment, but the 3 that we've got is the 89, 19, and then possibly Bloodlines. I mean, at this point, I think
did I call it Bloodlines earlier or something else?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's actually called Bloodlines. If I said the wrong name earlier, sorry.
I think you just called it a prequel.
Did I? I don't know. My head's all fuzzy at the minute. I did watch it today, and I know we're going to get into it, but I am going to say it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad film.
Yep.
I actually enjoyed it. However, if you are a fan of the original, if you're a fan of Pet Sematary in a whole, as in even the 2019, the 1989 one, you know the story. You know how it ends.
Yep.
You know it from start to finish.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter because them characters were quite intriguing, quite endearing, and actually likable. So I was kind of
strangely likable.
Yeah.
Because I was set to go, why are you doing this? And then the minute it clicked, because I have a habit of not, if there's a movie I want to see, I will try and avoid the trailers. And I know I've said this to you guys before, but I try and avoid the trailers because I like to go in blind because I don't want to know. I don't want to know the ins and outs. I haven't seen the trailers for Exorcist or Saw X. So, well, actually, Saw X did. Someone sort of shared it and tagged me in it, and before I knew what it was, I'd seen like the opening bit of the credit, the trailer, and I was like, off, and I think I got the gist of the entire movie in that 10 seconds, you know. But I try and avoid them to the best of my ability, and so I managed to avoid Bloodlines all the way through.
Have you seen Saw X yet?
No, not yet.
It hasn't. It won't ruin a goddamn thing.
Right. Okay.
I promise you, it will not. That trailer would not ruin anything. But I get what you mean. Trailers these days are movies.
Just leave. You don't need to put the entire plot line, all the kills, and everything else in a trailer because you're not enticing, you're not intriguing people to come to the cinema anymore.
I just watch a trailer. We'll just watch a trailer. Yeah, and it's only been in the last few years I've started doing it. Because if you watch all the trailers, even maybe 3-4 years ago, they were not as in depth. They were dun 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 moments, and that was it. And I take Guardians of the Galaxy for example because it's one of my favorite trailers of all time because I think the music just goes perfectly with it, and it was the first time that whole dun 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 was fit in, and it fit in with every bit clip, and that is just clips and clips and clips, tiny little snippets. Can't really make anything out. Right. But now it's like the Spider-Man movie that came out a couple of years ago. We saw everything, absolutely everything. Nothing was a surprise. And I'm starting to get sick, and I can't believe I'm saying this of all people, get sick of people oversharing when it comes to movie sets. Let's take Ghostbusters, for example. I don't want to see the pictures of what is happening. I don't want to see Dan Aykroyd in his suit before that movie comes out.
Yep, I avoided every trailer for Afterlife. I did so well, and I was so pleased with myself. Sat my ass in that cinema, and even when we were in cinemas and they started playing the trailer, I'd literally shut my eyes, hand over my ears, la 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 until it finished because I didn't want to know. Ghostbusters is like another one that's incredibly dear to me growing up, you know. So I even have a tattoo of Peter Venkman, you know. So why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's just a comfort movie of extreme levels for me, and I know so many people that were involved in this new movie, and I'm like, please don't share anything, please don't, because I want the element of surprise that I had with the Afterlife end sequence. I was watching grown men blur their eyes out at that scene, and it was all because everybody had managed to just
pause it down,
let it be, you know.
Let it be. So. Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually saying all of this, given that I used to do trailer reactions on YouTube, but it's just because of how things have changed. With the trailer, with the trailers that I did, it was just bits and pieces. It wasn't a full fucking movie. We're totally getting off subject here, but hey, it's what we do. If we aren't throwing tangents, we aren't doing our podcast right.
Correct.
So I'm going to ask this just to get it, because I mentioned at the beginning. Why did Judd? Is it Judd? Am I saying it right?
Judd.
Yeah, Judd. Why did Judd, or Judders, as I kept calling him today, allow Lewis to bring the cat back, but not expect him when his son died to bring his want to bring his child back, to do it by any means necessary? I can't fathom that. There was a snippet in the book that I read where he said he couldn't bear the idea of him suffering this grief. The movie and the book, Judd and Lewis, is it Lewis? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Lewis, yeah. Judd and Lewis, they had a very stronger relationship in the book than what they do in the movie. I mean, it is implied, but you've only got a certain period of time to like bond that relationship. In a book, it can be stretched, and they had an almost father-son relationship, and he couldn't bear the idea of Ellie losing her cat, losing Churchill. Couldn't bear the fact she would have to deal with that grief. But he was totally fine with Lewis to deal with that grief with Gage. I just can't get my head around where his thoughts would have been and why.
But now, go on.
No, go on.
Say, but now, having seen Bloodlines, does it put it in perspective for you?
A little bit, because that was fucking brutal. I'm not gonna lie. I want to make it very clear: spoilers from the outset when it comes to the prequel that's just been released. If you don't want to hear about it, please don't listen. Go and watch it, experience it. If you're a Pet Sematary fan, if you're happy to continue, hey. But that was fucking brutal. Yeah,
honestly, I was surprised. When I saw Henry Thomas from E.T. Elliot in it, I saw David Duchovny.
My heart grew sizes when I see him on screen. Every time I see Henry Thomas, I'm like, oh.
But Pam Grier as well. We're talking Pam Grier. I mean, she is like a staple in the Tarantino world. Pam Grier. We're talking, and I mean, she was not what I wasn't expecting to see her in the movie. Don't know why. Just it was a bit of a surprise, but it was a good surprise because the way they laid it out is that this is just a cycle that keeps happening. Like every X amount of years, someone comes in, there's a loss happen, and someone does the stupid shit. And David Duchovny his character is responsible for the stupid shit that ensues after this.
Oh, absolutely. Her character was fucking immense. The scene with the dog where she goes in and you just hear and it's like, and I just thought, oh shit, she's gone. And then she just comes around with this fucking scratching up it. Yeah, I had to kill his dog. Like she just sits down so nonchalant, like, I killed the dog.
In the cafe, yeah.
I just absolutely loved her. I wish there was more screen time with her. But I get why. I'm happy for what we got.
I think they focused a lot more on the purpose of the killings in this one. Like in the 89 version, you don't see them actually feasting on the bodies like you do in Bloodlines. Bloodlines implies that they're having to eat the bodies. They are technically zombies.
Yes.
Whereas it's never, I don't think it's implied in the original.
It's not.
They're zombies.
It is in the book, obviously, source material, but I don't think it is in that. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
So, fun fact number one, from 1989 one, George A. Romero was lined up to be the original director for this, but he dropped out to do, on the tip of my tongue.
Monkey Shines?
Yes, Monkey Shines. And Mary Lambert took over.
Yeah.
Now, the minute George's name appears, you're like, yep, zombie movie, totally get it.
I mean, and then like it was because of the work that him and Stephen did on Creepshow. So Stephen knew that he could hand his work and trust his work with George because he'd obviously worked with George prior, so he felt very comfortable with George. But then Mary seemed to, when George couldn't do it, Mary seemed to get a grasp on what it was that Stephen was trying to achieve with the book, rather than make it like a mini series of tragedies and whatnot.
Because you could with this town.
Just put a fucking fence up. Seriously.
Just
so much shit.
Exactly. But let's just slip in another person.
Yes.
Before Mary gets asked to do the job. it's our dear and lovely Tom Savini gets asked to direct, and he turns it down as well.
I mean, I can understand why to a degree, unless he had other.
I want to say other commitments, because I feel that this would have been up his roadhouse. There is stunt work, there is makeup, and there's a story. There's a really good story, and a really I have so many things swirling around my head with this whole story, because it's so, I'm not saying convoluted in a bad way, I'm saying it in a good way. It makes me question quite a bit, and then that means there's lore there. That means there's more there, and that could be developed. If we're getting prequels, the fuck, we could get a prequel of a prequel. Do you know what I mean? There's so much more that can be done with this, because there's so much to it than just, we bury them and they come back. That's just part of it.
The one thing I will say that goes to that puts the 89 version, in my opinion, as the top runner of the three, because like I said, I'm not counting Pet Sematary 2.
Doesn't exist.
It's purely the things like, if you actually watch that movie, the cinematography, the colours, you don't get that in the other two films.
No, you don't.
It's like where Judd's standing on top of the burial ground. It's a Micmac burial ground, isn't it? I think that's what it's called. And they do like a big shoot on a crane, so they catch the sun setting or sun rising in the back, and it is the most beautiful shot, because Fred Gwynne was like 6'7" or something, wasn't he? He was a giant man. He was a
giant of a man, but the only choice for Judd.
I will say John Lithgow did a bloody good job in the remake, but
absolutely, you can't. You could put John Lithgow in anything and you are getting the performance of a lifetime, because he is just he's an amazing actor. But if you are stacking him up against Ed Gwynn in this role, he's never going to win. In my eyes, anyway.
No, I mean, obviously, soft spot for Fred. Can't really...
To have just called him Ed Gwynn. What is wrong with me? Do you know what?
Yeah.
Oh... I know what it is. No, I know what it is. So I told you last night about that video about them finding Santa Claus. He is called Ed Gwynn or something. Right. It's very similar, because when they found him, I went, "Oh my god, they found Herman Munster." It wasn't. Their names are very similar.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, and they both got unmarked graves, technically. Oh,
yeah. Oh, I know. And I mean, tonight's episode is pretty. It's pretty sad when you really think about what it is we're dealing with. It's kind of subplotted in there, because it's pure grief.
It is. This whole film is. I will get to a few things that Stephen King has said about this movie in a bit, but I just wanted to go back to the special effects thing about, like you were saying about Tom Savini and that.
Yeah.
I actually found out the special effects guy was David Leroy Anderson, and his wife is actually Heather Langenkamp. So Nancy from
oh my god, it's
Freddie. Yeah. They've been married for years and years and years. So she then worked with Miko on, I think it was New Nightmare or one of those ones that she did. And then Miko went on to be in Mercury Rising, I think it was. And he's done a few other things, including, and you should know this, because I'm really proud of myself that I know this, Ice Nine Kills funeral derangements video. He drives the lorry that hits the kid.
Yeah. I really fucking love that song.
But he drives the lorry that kills the kid. And I'm just like, I see what you did there, Spencer. I see.
Because he's very fucking clever.
Yeah.
He actually recorded there's a song dedicated to Scream. It's a fucking brilliant song. He actually recorded it in the house that was used for Stu Mocker's house in Scream. That's fucking meta for you. Yeah, I love that song. But I do you know what? I was actually going to go the whole episode without bringing that song up.
I was like, no, Sammy will be pleased if I mention those 9 kills.
Yes, so, of course. My favourite.
Bill Moseley as well in that video, so can't really.
Oh,
at the end, the policeman.
Yes, he is. It's do you know what's so funny? Whenever the song comes on, Spotify always shows like clips of the video,
Yeah.
and he's never in it. So I'm like, I don't see it. Now I've got it stuck in my head. It's a very hard song.
Yeah.
Like it's a brr, brr, brr song, but then you hear the sometimes death is better.
It's very rhythmic, so it sticks in your head that bit. But yeah, the video is really cool. So give the video a watch.
Yeah.
But
listen to the band. Just don't do what I do and listen to them 365 days of the year, because Spotify will pick that up.
They will tell you, you're my biggest fan.
I'm expecting like an email at some point going, the day I stopped listening to them, are you okay?
Can we help you in any way? Did you know that they were originally going to cast someone else as Lewis Creed?
Yes, I do.
How would this movie have turned out had he have been cast?
But I think, and this is nothing against the guy who ended up playing those, because I generally like him. There was nothing wrong with his performance. But if it was him, I don't know how I would feel about it, because it's almost too on the nose with how he could have been. It's Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
That's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
It was Bruce Campbell was the first choice for Lewis Creed, and I just the minute I saw that, I just thought it would be Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead. That's how I felt.
Campy. I think it would have gone into that realm of. Obviously, the direction that Sam Raimi gave Bruce was campy, ham it up, blah blah blah. And I don't think Mary would have given him that, but I've never seen Bruce act straight in anything. So everything is done by the Hotep, even these cameos and all of the Spider-Man movies that Sam had anything to do with.
It was all slapsticky, over the top comedy.
Because that's what people know him for. And I'm probably wrong. He probably has done a straight movie. I just don't know. I have not seen it.
Me neither.
So I don't know if he could have played the grief right, because it wouldn't have been a case of shutting your head in the fridge to get rid of your grief,
No,
until you forget,
Yeah, this needed a level of, oh God, it needed to go deep, and it needed to be raw. And the guy who plays Lewis, I'm very sorry, I didn't write any of the cast names down. He was
Dale.
It's the look on his face. It's just the you see it, he plays it all in his eyes, and it really is perfect. I'm going to be very honest, the 2019 one, for all yes I have seen it, it's not etched in there. The 1989 one I've seen a fair few times, and it is like in there permanently. I can picture scene after scene after scene in here. I love the aesthetic of the 2019 one. I love the colours. We were mentioning about the colours in the 1989 one.
Yeah.
I love the aesthetic of that. It almost gives me a lot of Wicker Man kind of feel, like the kind of paganism kind of. And I know it's not, because it's Indian heritage. It's that sort of heritage, but it still gives me that kind of vibe. And I think the colours and the masks as well, they kind of help with that. The kids
doing the procession to bury the dog at the beginning,
yeah.
I mean,
that kind of helps.
If I'm honest, I am going to do something controversial. It's the 89 Bloodlines and then the 2019 for me. Because 2019, I want to say, oh God, I don't know how the best way to describe it, but when they jumped the shark and recast Ellie instead of Gage as the creepy kid, it lost it for me, because I don't want. Gage kills it because he can't really he's not very eloquent, he hasn't got a lot to say, so it's all in his face. And the kid Miko Hughes at 2 pulling just I know some of it was special effects, and they did some molds of his faces, and stunt doubles and things like that for some of the for some of the things. But for a kid of 2 to understand what he needed to do in that moment, especially after his dad has euthanized him in the neck, and he's like looking really shocked, and then he walks off and go, "No fair," or "You're not fun," or something like that as he walks around the corner with a big kid's bottom lip, you know. And it was just
they said they were going to use twins for Cage's character, but because of how fucking brilliant this 2-year-old was, like what you asked him to do, they had to use 10 cats for Churchill.
A lot of cats.
They had to use a lot of cats because cats, believe it or not, are dickheads who you cannot train.
They
not
said
like a dog.
Yeah, each cat had like one purpose for one scene, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yep. Because you can't train a cat. It's as simple as that. But with him, there was if you told him to emote something, a 2-year-old, he would do that. Now Ellie is a twin.
Mm-hmm.
The really shit part is with Ellie, the girl, the twin who plays her the most is not the one who's actually credited. How shit is that? Because they did it. They used the other twin to just alleviate her a bit because she was working a long time, and she was the one who got the fucking credit.
Like, she only did a bit. Like, she dropped off on the second half of the movie, didn't she? Really, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was not there a lot because it's not really. To be honest, the movie story doesn't focus on Ellie. The novel, on the other hand, Ellie's psychic.
Yeah, they allude to it in the film.
They do, but
the phone calls and
but Mary said the girls couldn't really. It was hard to fit into such an already very fast moving. There's a lot going on here. Movie, and then to add in a little girl who was psychic. That's a hell of a lot to explain in the short period of time that they have. So I was totally fine knowing that was removed from there. I didn't see a huge problem with that.
I didn't think it needed it, to be fair.
No, it doesn't.
It wouldn't have mattered. I mean, even though she just tells her dad of her dreams, I think that was enough, you know. You didn't need a whole section on it.
No.
You know, with a book you've got the ability to spend 6 chapters talking about it,
and Stephen King probably did.
As with all his books. He
likes to explain the back end of a fart.
You're not wrong.
I've tried to read it. I now own it on audiobook because I give in. You can just sit there as a collector. Like I give in. But this book actually is another one where we may never have been able to see it, but thank you to Tabitha King. He shelved it. Just like he did with Carrie. He shelved it, didn't think it was good enough, and she picked it out and went, nah, you need to get this out.
Yeah. So she said, and even he says it's the most terrible thing he has ever written.
Yes.
But not because it's bad, because it's like the darkest matter you can possibly think of, the death of your own child.
He got the idea from the death of his daughter's cat. Schmucky. That's where the idea came from. And if you are paying very close attention, Schmucky has his own grave in Pet Sematary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can totally understand where he's coming from. It is a grim subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like the death side of it. Put that aside. You've been given an opportunity to bring that person back.
It's the moral question, isn't it?
Yes. No.
I don't care how much in grief you are. If you know that you brought that cat back and that cat came back something different to the cat that you buried, what the fuck would it do to a human? No, thank you.
No. Just no. It is the moral side of it, because I've watched this and I've seen Buffy and I've seen enough programs where they didn't want to come back.
No.
They were happy where they were.
Leave them be.
I understand it though, because in grief, and I know this from very recently, I would do anything. I would do anything to have that time back. But at what cost? What's the cost? And I don't particularly want to find that out.
And it seems like everybody else pays the price, not the person that did the deed. Do you know what I mean? It's like the fact that a 2-year-old takes down a 6'7" 6'7" bloke, you know, with a scalpel,
by
sounds
swinging around his
implausible.
neck.
But that's the thing, sounds implausible, but they worked it out really well in the movie. I mean, someone tried to say that the 2019 version was better than the 89 version because Ellie was more eloquent. She gave people the creeps more. And I was sitting there going, did we watch the same film? Honestly, Gage is
terrifying.
He is a horror icon in the sense of that.
Yes.
Not in the sense of that he's a mass murdering, had many movies since, sequels and all that sort of thing. Gage, it's the unsettling thing that you've buried a 2-year-old that technically, and I'm going extra gross here, would have been pink mist after being hit by that truck. He wouldn't have just had a tiny little scar on his forehead. But, you know, for the sake of the story,
I am only smiling because I know where you got pink mist from.
Just
totally killers. Pink mist.
But he would have been. I mean, let's be honest. You have a.
He would have been
how many times? Yeah. So
he
I mean,
literally would have been schmush.
I'm taking it as the thought that he fell over, bumped his head, but hit his head so hard that he died, and the truck didn't actually hit him; it just ran over the top of him, but not run him over.
It had to have, because he was in perfectly good tact.
Exactly. Even when they were fighting, and that scene makes me feel sick in the funeral home at the kids' funeral. Right? I don't get reactions from movies lightly. It takes a lot to make me feel anything because I know it's not real. But that one scene where the grandpa and the dad are fighting and they knock Gage's coffin off the side and like his little arm falls out or whatever it is that happens. And I'm just like,
oh,
no. And like, they had no decorum. They had no, I don't know what the word is. I know, like I say, grief is a fucking weird thing and it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it can make you do some really fucked up things. And that scene, I remember that scene isn't the nicest.
It's horrible.
It is, because this is a movie it is a purely grief. Yes. Yeah. That grief, but there is so much more into the story because there's also Rachel's story.
Ugh. Zelda.
Now, I was very confused on first watching this because I'm fairly new to Pet Sematary, even though I've seen it a fair few times. I'm still like fairly new to it, and I was like, why are we seeing this? Why do we need to know about Zelda? But it's trauma. It's just another side of trauma, and sometimes grief and trauma come hand in hand. And Rachel is just as part of this story as Lewis is.
Yeah.
So her trauma needs to be recognized, and to do that, you have the flashback scenes with Zelda, who, by the way, had meningitis.
I think it was spinal meningitis she was supposed to have.
But it was the fact she had meningitis. My sister had meningitis, and I can't remember her doing shit like that.
I was going to say to Michaela,
maybe now. I only say that because I know she does not. I know she does not listen to this podcast. But so I can say that.
It's like, I understand why they did it because they were trying to set the scene for what inevitably pans out towards the end with Gage. Denise Crosby's character, she basically she's got PTSD and she's got unresolved grief issues from when her parents left her alone with her sister who died on her watch because I think she choked on her dinner or something, or she just died. I can't remember the reason why she died, but the parents left her alone. So that then sets the scene that the parents are already shitty human beings because they expected a 12-year-old to babysit however old Zelda was supposed to be. And Zelda creeped the shit out of Rachel as it was. And the parents expected her to be responsible for her sister. So, number one, shitty parents. Number 2, the shitty parents kicking off at the funeral. They don't really have much going for them, really, in my
No,
opinion, those
no.
parents.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I was very confused by the whole why would Zelda be in there, but you really have to you have to remember that Rachel is still a character in this. Like, she's still a part of this. This is not just the Lewis and Gage or, Lewis and Judd show. She is also very much a part of this. And I think they go into Zelda's story a lot more in the book.
Yeah.
I have not actually read the book, just to make that very clear to people. I did a big read on I read the plot of the book, and then I read the plot of the 1989 one to compare the two.
Yeah.
Not much different, just a lot more detail.
Yeah.
That was probably the big part, because Stephen King had very much a lot to do with the movie. He even insisted it had to be shot in Maine.
Yep.
Had to be shot in Maine.
This was the first time he'd ever adapted one of his own novels into a screenplay, because he did the screenplay for this movie.
I didn't read that part. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's so cool.
He said it was a choice because he didn't want a movie so heavy to be chopped and changed and messed around and not given the respect the grief needs to have, and not. He wanted it to flow through. Obviously it does, because it's one after another. So he wanted to keep it an ongoing theme, whereas he was worried that if someone else wrote the screenplay, they weren't as invested in the whole element of grief, and they would try and make it into a horror movie.
And you could do that.
It is a horror movie by all intents and purposes. You have your dead ghost kid that's coming to Lewis in all his dreams, and then you've got things being reanimated and coming out as zombies. But it's
dead zombie kids. It's very personal, so I kind of like the idea that he did the screenplay for it, because it would lose that personal touch that he has given the story initially. Fred Gwynne described playing Judd as putting on a pair of overalls. Like, it was so natural to him.
Yeah.
I fucking love this man. Every time I read something more about him, I fall more in love with him, because that is such a lovely thing to say.
I was lucky enough to have a really great grandpa, but I swear, if I could have had, not known my grandpa and I had a choice, Fred Gwynne would have been the guy that I would have chosen.
Totally understand. I am with you on that one. My granddad was like, I've talked about him a lot on this podcast, because he is like, this one and on the Sunday one, I am me mainly because of him. Everything that I love, from wrestling to Star Wars to my figures to, is all down to him, because my granddad used to sit in his chair and tell me, I've seen the world and I've never had to move an inch. He loved his fucking telly. He absolutely. So I totally get that. But if I didn't have such an amazing granddad, I would have loved him as Herman Munster, though.
He was very morally driven as Herman. He had a lot of. Everything was like, it doesn't matter who you are, you just should be accepted for who you are. They were giving messages that people are still trying to give today in the 60s, for crying out loud, the monsters. And it's like, you sit there and you're going, Jesus, we've come this many years down the line, 60 odd years since that was out. Yeah. And we're still having to drum that shit into people that it's okay to be it's whoever fine. You want to be.
That speech gets brought up on TikTok. It does the rounds now and again. And every time I sit and listen to every word he says, and I still manage to cry at the end. Because it's not just what he's saying, it's how he's saying it. It's the sincerity in his face. Even behind all that makeup, you can still see his face and his eyes, and I choke up every time. Every time I see him on screen, whether it be My Cousin Vinny or, which is it is My Cousin Vinny, isn't he? He's the judge in that.
Did you say Utes?
It's the my biological clock is ticking. He towers in that movie as well. Like, you don't think you can see his true size until he actually leans up on his table, and he is literally leering over the table. But I absolutely love him. And I was devastated at his death, but I got it. He was part of it. He was very much a part of it. If he didn't show him the cemetery, this would never have happened.
Yeah, and I haven't watched Bloodlines now, and Judd understanding the importance of what his family and the other founding families were doing to then be the custodian of the knowledge, because that was his job.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of the others had kids that they passed the knowledge on to. So Judd was the only one left with the book that Henry Thomas gave him. For those that you don't know, Henry Thomas plays Judd's dad, and the Bloodlines is a prequel based roughly 20 years prior to the 89 version. Now, my only beef with this film is that in 20 years he went from fit early 20s to being in his 60s. Now, how can you get a 40-year age gap? They didn't really think that one.
They didn't.
So,
but I can kind of forgive them on it, because I thought the guy who played Judd he had the well mannerisms that our Judd in 1989 has. The kind nature, it's all there. The characteristics of 1989's Judd is all in there. So I didn't mind that age gap does not make sense. I was going to say something and I've totally forgotten.
I think the thing is with it though, it's like Judd made the mistakes before, you know. He was around when the mistakes were made. So when there's that whole section where he freaks out in the 89 version with his overacting, because I've called him out on that before, where he knocks the beer bottles off and he's like, oh, when he says, have you ever brought a human back? And he knocks the beer bottles off and goes, oh, you crazy man. And he like has a whole like overacting section.
If he just turned around and went, no, that's it.
It was like, it's now over. It makes sense that he overacted because he was trying to cover up the fact that yes, he was aware that it had happened, you know, and he doesn't confess to it in the 89 film till a bit later on. But that's when they start talking about the kid from Bloodlines. So
yes, Timmy, as I kept saying in my head every time he said his name, Timmy. He does, if you do pay close attention in Pet Sematary, he does tell you the whole plot to what you're about to watch of Bloodlines. Tells you it in entirety. But watching it is a completely different experience. Watching David Duchovny, that was special. That was that was grief of such a higher level. Like, he'd already done it. The movie it started, it already had been done. Yeah.
You just see him dragging him, don't you, at the very, very beginning. And it's like, there's no pussyfooting around it. We're not like, oh, we've just discovered this Indian burial ground, blah, blah, blah. Nah, this has happened before. You know this has happened before because they tell you it's happened before. And that's why the committee has been put together, because it keeps happening, because people just can't let things fucking go.
But you can't. You have such an opportunity to bring that person back. There is something, I don't know, if I would like to think I am strong enough to be able to put things to bed and say that, you know, it's like, deal with my grief, my loss.
Yeah.
But if given that opportunity, knowing that it's out there, knowing that I could do it without anyone having to know about it or anyone catching us, would I? I don't know.
I know I wouldn't.
I know I said earlier that I wouldn't, but looking over and thinking about like in David Duchovny's head, it's a mind fuck.
Yeah, I can see why he did it, but I wouldn't do it because I'm only doing it for me.
So David
So I
Duchovny's
can
son,
feel better.
yes,
That would be the only reason
that
I'm
is
doing
grief. That is grief in its entirety. My mother always says to us, please to God, when I'm gone, do not go and visit me at a graveyard or anything like that. You are not crying for me, you are crying for yourself. That's I love
it.
my
Correct.
mum, but yeah, but
I've,
she is
I've already got an urn downstairs for myself. It is
nice.
a cookie jar. It's a cookie
Excellent.
jar it's a boo ghost.
Oh wow.
You know, like a white sheep boo ghost.
Yeah.
And I said to Rob, just put me in the fire, stick me in that thing, and then make some jewelry out of me, flog me to make some money, keep a bit for yourself, sprinkle me in America somewhere. Done. I really don't want the pomp and circumstance of a big funeral.
No.
I don't want wailing women. I don't want the horse and carriage. I don't want a fuss. I
mean,
want to go out of this world as I came in, you know, quietly.
Whoocha!
Yeah.
I want one of those truth tellers to come to my funeral and just fucking let rip. It depends. It depends when I perish.
Yeah.
Is either the people
And
are
she
still alive?
yeah.
Fuck you.
Or just pre-record an entire
I'll have a whole fucking
video.
episode of me just like going, yeah, fuck you. Did you see Carrie Fisher's urn?
No.
It was a what's it called? Oh my god, what's the happy drug?
Oh, not Xanax or one of those.
It was a Xanax tablet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like it was a pill shape.
Brilliant.
And it was halved in the middle, and Carrie Fisher is sitting in a pill somewhere.
Amazing.
She's part of her is because she's got a whole statue thing with her mother.
Yeah,
in Los Angeles. Yeah, but her brother has part of her ashes in a Xanax.
I think Billy has some, doesn't she, as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like some with their mom, some with their daughter, some with their brother. I thought that was genius. But going back to David Duchovny. So Timmy had in the book, it's described that Timmy is killed in World War II.
Right,
injured in World War II.
Yeah.
Because that's how David Duchovny plays it, injured. No, he doesn't. He says he come back and he got the Silver Star and all was good.
Wounded or something.
Yeah. But it's World War II in the book, but it was Vietnam.
Yeah.
In here. So to be honest, having it as Vietnam is actually a bit more because World War II, I don't think there was a draft, but there was for Vietnam. And a lot of men were angry that their young sons were taken away from them of a war that they knew nothing good was going to come of it. They were never going to win, blah, blah, blah. No. That's me just saying it in a nutshell. I'm very sorry. I do not mean to offend anyone when I talk about the Vietnam War. But there's anger behind it. So I can kind of understand why he made that decision because he never wanted him to fucking go in the first place.
Because you think if David Duchovny is of the age he is, he might have already served in World War II. He might well have been in that. I mean, obviously it doesn't go into it, but you know, as a supposition, I suppose that might have happened. He could have already served, and then he's seen what his son's gone through.
Yeah,
and he's like,
"Fuck no,
I don't want that for you." Yeah,
no. And he would have been angry at the fact that one, his son had been taken away from him, anyways. And two, and in a way, it was such a horrible way that these men were drafted. Their fucking birthdays.
Yeah, and on a piece of paper.
Yes.
Put up in the village hall or the school. Or and that's when you found out whether it was D-Day or not, you know.
Fucking awful, man. And then he actually does get killed. He does get taken away from him, like physically. It's not knowing that you know that this fucking burial ground will do that. That is not a hard decision I don't think for him to make.
No, I think he justified it. He justified it straight away. I don't think that David Duchovny, because he wasn't one of the founding families, I don't think he might have had the knowledge that they did in respect of that.
He doesn't act it, but he doesn't, when at the end, he holds his hands up.
Yeah.
He doesn't sit there and get argumentative or, defensive. He fucking owns it. He knows what he's done.
He said, what is it? He says, I brought him into the world, I'll take him out of this world, or something.
I held him when he came into this world, and I will hold him when he leaves it. And that is fucking strong.
That's heavy. Yeah.
It's really heavy. David Duchovny was so good in this. There's some things that Duchovny does where, like, what was the last thing I saw him in? It was The fucking Craft.
Oh, I haven't watched that piece of shit. The beginning, that one.
I fucking did. Of all the films, of all the films I could have sat and gone through, the plethora of shit I have not seen. I watched that. He is so fucking campy in it. Like, he overacts, like, his words. He's meant to be a bad guy, and it's like he's playing a cartoon villain. Like, it's totally not him.
No, but thank you.
That was so good. The more I talk about this movie, the more I'm starting to really, really, I mean, I liked it when it finished. I'm starting to really, really like it.
The thing about Duchovny as well, though, it is quite deceiving how tall he is. David Duchovny is quite a tall man. In real life, Rob's 6'1", so I would say David Duchovny is around 5. Well, Rob might be 6'2". I think he's more 6'2". So we're talking David Duchovny's either 5'11" or just hitting 6 foot. He's a tall man, but he never looks it in this movie.
No.
He looks like the world has pushed him into the floor.
Like, I am just going to close my window because I can smell smoke, and it's doing my tits in.
But yeah,
into that time of year, like, fuckers are setting fireworks off, and I can just smell it. I'm so sorry. My nose is too sensitive to start with.
Start sneezing now.
Oh, I hope to fucking God I don't. I've just stopped. But yes, he's not. He doesn't.
He looks like, you can tell he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. Like, when he's walking around, you can see he's got like this. Even after he's brought his son back, he just looks.
He knows. He knows how quickly he figured it out. I'm not sure that Timmy did not come back.
That's never going to be funny.
It did not come back. He didn't come back the way he intended him to. Because when you come back, you're not you.
No, they allude in a couple of the videos I saw. One of the theories, now I'm not too sure I agree with this theory, but going back to the original, the theory was that Zelda had possessed Gage. And I was like, no.
No, she didn't.
That's not, no. Another one was...
I'm sorry, again, she had meningitis. No. They make it out like she had like all this like mental health issues and possible schizophrenia. She had meningitis. She was very sick, but she wasn't fucking
murderous. Yeah.
No.
The other one I saw was that the ground needed blood, so it had to feed.
I like that.
So that's why they were sent out, not to necessarily kill these people to bring them back, but it was to give the ground the blood it needed to sustain
what would it not have done? What would it not have done if it didn't get it? Because as we know, with Little Shop of Horrors, he gets really fucking angry. Like, what would the ground have done if it hadn't?
That's the question, and that was because it's an Indian burial ground. Or
unless they didn't want to find out and they just kept on doing it. So probably nothing would have happened. It's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, we have to keep doing this because we don't want to find out what the fuck happens if we don't.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the book would have a bit more in depth, because as you say, Stephen King does like to go into detail.
Oh yeah.
But out of all of the ones, that was the most plausible reason for me. Like, you had to keep feeding it because otherwise something bad would happen. Although the something bad does keep happening because people just can't stop being people.
No, they can't. It's all right to bring an animal back, though. Even though they don't, that's what, see, this is another thing. Another thing. Judge knows what happens to animals when they get brought back because he fucking witnessed it with Duchovny's dog.
And he brought his own dog back. Yeah, he did. So
they stink. They're rotten. They're not the same person. They're not the same creature anymore. So he did that for Ellie's grief. He shouldn't have fucking bothered.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think it was the one time Judd let himself just be nice. I think he just let his guard down, and he was just like, right. "Oh, yeah. I can't bear her to go through stuff, and here's a way for her not to have ever known about the situation." But by doing that, he then planted the seed with Lewis, and the whole situation
fucking escalated.
Awry. Especially to the fact that when, I don't know how it happened, but when Gage kills the mum, kills Rachel, and she's hanging. I'm like, I can't remember how that bit happened, but the setup for that was she was hanging. I was like, he's two. He would be in the loft on a bit of string, you know. If he was trying to pull her up,
movie magic, or magic, just
magic.
Pure,
we'll go with magic,
pure magic.
But they weren't going to end the film like that because
no, they weren't.
They tested it, didn't they? And
they did.
It was a lot more neater and happy, and it was. They left it to your own imagination.
Yeah.
But then they realised that people wanted gross. People wanted.
You've gone through the grimmest fucking thing possible. A kid died. Like that is
twice.
That is fucking grim, and it just the idea that happened is grim enough. But no, these people wanted more. Fucking Rachel had to bite the bullet. But fucking Lewis does not learn his lesson. He has just been through something quite horrific where his wife ended up getting killed. And his justification for it all is, I did Gage too late.
Yes.
He was already in the ground. He'd already had time to do what dead bodies do. She had not. Let's get her up there now. It'll all be different. Yep. No, it doesn't work that way. There is a lot more afoot than just he doesn't know and understand the law of all of it.
Which is odd because he's a doctor. You think his science brain would kick in and be
but it doesn't.
More
when your heart is completely broken for not just the first time but the second time, and something that you can't quite get your head around, whatever science and logic, it just disappears. You've just been told that there's a magic place where you can go and bring your loved ones back. It's gonna happen. He's gonna go there. There is a lot of backwards and forwards with this. My opening line is incredibly contradictory. That I said earlier, there is no gain without risk, perhaps no risk without love. So it's like, it's okay, just you can risk doing it, but sometimes death is better. Like it just completely contradicts each other. But that's what this movie does. That's what this book does throughout. It contradicts itself because on one hand, it's okay to do this, but it's not okay to do this. Like I said at the beginning. And do you know what? That's what makes it more fucking intriguing. And this is why I have loved the idea of talking about this one today. Yeah. Because it's like, there's so many different conversations you can fucking have.
To me, I'm more intrigued at what the Native American Indian burial ground was. The whole purpose of that bringing them back thing, was that a curse? Was it a rite of passage? Was it something that they did to make sure the earth was fed, and they set this up to make sure the earth had what it needed? Because I don't know, if we're going Buffy, there's a hellmouth under there for all we know, you know. I would have liked a bit more backstory to find out why that was there, and I'm sure in the book it is. I read the book when I was about 15 and I haven't read it since, so I can't really remember too much about the book in the respect of the little details and stuff.
The plot doesn't tell you like detail these stuff. It's just the outline of what's going on. Now you know, in It Part 2,
Yes.
he talks about an Indian ritual in
Yeah.
that. Is that in the book?
The Ritual of Chud.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So is Maine known for its ritual practices?
Well, put it this way, I never want to go to Maine. I never, thanks to Stephen King, I know they're imaginary places. I know Derry doesn't exist. And the Ludlow that you see doesn't exist, but there actually is a Ludlow in Maine, but it's not like this.
Yeah.
Everywhere that Stephen King creates a place is always in Maine. It's a running theme throughout all of his books. I think there is something to do with mass migration, you know, when the settlers moved in and pushed the natives out. So
Yeah.
I think I want to say, because I'm pretty sure Maine is on the east coast coming inland.
Right.
It's not on the edge. So I do think the settlers pushed the natives out. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he's got so many themes of that through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I see a lot too that I've noticed because it's two that we've talked about.
There's a lot more of Stephen King's with Native American burial grounds and Native American rituals, and yeah.
No, I don't want to. I'm sorry to harp on about David Duchovny. I just really I really enjoyed this film, and like more than probably what I felt before we start recording. Just because of this is what I do though. When I talk something out and hash it out, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, that was a really good fucking film. And Duchovny, when he finds out that Judd's going into the Peace Corps, his reaction is not what you would expect of someone's kid who did have to go to Vietnam. Yeah. He should have been fucking foreman.
Yeah.
You should have been absolutely raging. Like, who are you? Like, my son has just had to go off and do this, and you're going to join the fucking Peace Corps? Like, fuck you. He doesn't do that. It's like, yes, you go do that. Like, go. Because I know what awaits.
Yeah.
Sitting back of the house. Fucking Timmy.
And he didn't want that for you. He didn't want that for him. Because they basically Judd, Timmy, and then there's another character, Manny,
yes.
And the three of those were like lifelong childhood friends. Manny was of Native American descent.
Yeah.
And
he had that beautiful accent. Oh,
him and his sister, yeah. And unfortunately, his sister gets buried by Timmy in the burial grounds, and his sister comes back, and his sister
the feet.
But it was the
feet.
When she was trying to clean her feet,
and the skin just came off.
But it would though, so I am quite. I mean, impressed. I don't know if it would come off that soon because it was only supposed to be. The time frame looked like it was only about 12 hours.
It depends it depends on the moisture it always comes down to the moisture of the body. That's what it all comes down to, whether or not. And also illness can be a great factor in your skin falling off. A lot of AIDS victims had issues with their skin. And it's purely just down to the illness. But fuck me, that was horrific.
That was something. It really was.
I didn't think I had a problem with feet until I saw that, and I was like, oh, and the detail.
It's just the way she looks up at her.
I know, and she's like, and then she looks down and goes, yes, like your fucking foot's just come off. The detail, the detail in there as well. That is fucking wow. Ow.
All the metal tassels and but it's she plays psychotic well, but they implied with her that she was magic, I think, because she just kept appearing in places. And I was just like, how the fuck did she get there that quick? You know, when you're like, can we question this? Is this something we're not supposed to?
There's some things you don't question, but there's a character in Game of Thrones who did that quite a lot. Varys in Game of Thrones just fucking appeared everywhere, and it's like, how the fuck did you get there to then you get back there? Like, it makes no goddamn sense. Anytime anyone can be in one place at like very quickly, I always go back and think of him. At first when I met Manny, I was like, just the initial part of it, I was like, you could take him out and it really wouldn't matter. Like, it could have just been Judd and Timmy's friendship, but I'm never going to stop doing it.
I know, and I'm really trying hard not to laugh.
But he needed to be there. Him and his heritage needed to explain like it was needed, and he was great. I honestly, I just at the beginning part of his story, like being in it, I was like, really, like it feels like it felt like you were fitting someone in just to fit someone in, but then actually no, he's actually of importance. Like, he needs to be there. That friendship, and do you know what? I really wish they explored the friendship side of things a bit more with them three, because it was
because they
very
started
quick.
it too far down the line, didn't they? It was like,
they did, and it was like a photograph was all you were meant to have. There was a bit of a flashback. Was there a bit of a flashback
at the end, at the very end? Yeah, but not enough at that point. You don't really, you don't care at the end because it's done.
Yeah, and I think Judd was so made up with his decision in life that he didn't need his friendships to be the one holding him back.
Yeah.
So I think he'd completely detached himself. And I'm not saying in an awful way, but needed to detach himself, because if he didn't, he was staying there. And his father even said himself, Ludlow will eat you whole. If you stay here, you need to go and you need to not come back, because this will eat you whole. So I think he needed to emotionally detach himself from people in order to leave. Unfortunately, that does not happen for Judd.
No. He gets killed by a 2-year-old.
When he is 60.
Or 40, depending on where you are on the timeline.
Yeah, we don't quite know. But yeah. I have one more interesting fact.
Right.
I thought it was interesting. So at the beginning of 1989, when you hear all the kids.
Yep.
Do you know who one of them kids is? Jonathan Brandis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jonathan Brandis' voice is part of the children at the beginning of the 1989 movie, which I thought was just fucking lovely. I know hindsight is a great thing, but it's nice to know that he is in 2 Stephen King adaptations and he is no longer with us.
On consecutive years as well, 89 and 90. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I just thought that was such a lovely touch. And I don't know if I feel like that because he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, I mean, when you start looking at the budget and box offices for 19 and 89, I mean, if you go by 89 standards, the budget was 11.5 million for a 1989 movie, which is quite a big budget movie.
It's not a bad bit of coin, yeah.
And at the box office, it took 89.5 million. So it made a good whack for 1989. However, put that in today's money, the budget was 24.5 million, which is 500,000 more than Scream 2. And it took 221 million by today's money. So that is a hell of a return of like 197 or 6.5 million. Now, bearing in mind, Scream 2 didn't even make that. Scream 2 only made 117 million. I say only, but in comparisons.
Yeah.
But looking at a big budget sequel that would have had the money behind it.
Yeah.
So something that, and the difference was that came out in 97, 98. This was 1989. So it was only 7-8 years before. And that freaks me out, because if you watch Pet Sematary, 1989, Scream 2, there's not even 10-year age gap between the two of those movies.
No, there's not.
And they look so different to watch.
So different. But it has such a, like, the Stephen King movies at the time, take the fucking Shining out of it. The Stephen King movies at the time, the aesthetic all looks exactly the same.
Yeah, made for TV.
I fucking love it. And I've just realised, and I'm not joking, right here, right now, just realised by looking at my piece of paper, the novel came out in 1983. The year I was born. The movie came out in 1989. The year my sister was born. Pet Sematary was meant to be.
It was.
And there's a sister story in there too. And one of them had meningitis. And she was potentially the youngest.
So you're Rachel and you've got PTSD. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. No, I was very well looked after when my sister was in hospital. I wasn't left alone with her.
No.
She wasn't that bad. She had meningitis, septicemia. She was she physically fine, just inside not so much. But yeah, it's only just occurred to us there while looking. I'm like looking at it, going, yeah. I only knew it was 40 years old because I'm 40 years old, and it came out in 1983, and I was like, oh yeah, my sister was born in 1989. Huh. Who knew? So there's only 6 years between book to movie.
Yeah, which is quite a fast turnaround, but it wasn't. It would have been quicker, like you said earlier, because he shelved it thinking, oh, it's too dark. So it could have been made a lot sooner. But I know
God
that
it didn't.
The only reason it came out as well was because he owed his old publishing firm one more book. And he didn't really think much of this book in the sense of that he knew it was dark, but he didn't want to make a fuss. He just thought, oh, right, I owe him one last book. They've paid me for it. They can take this one because I'm moving on and things are going to be different. And so he gave them Pet Sematary. And in doing so, he did no press tours for it. He did no, none of the usual things that he would do to promote a book. So people thought it was intentional to keep the suspense up of this movie. But in fact, he just didn't have to because he wasn't contractually obliged anymore towards this company. So when they sold the rights, the book company sold the rights to Paramount, who then made Pet Sematary, well, got in contact with Stephen and said, look, we want to do this. We've got the rights to do it. We want your blessing to do it, which is rare for a studio to go to the original author. But I think Stephen King was so big at the time.
Yeah. It's nice that they did though, because like I know The Shining isn't his favorite. It's
not Kubrick's favorite either.
No, but I really like that film. Like, I take out Stephen King's name, I just enjoy that movie, even though, you know, I know a lot of things come out about the way it was made and the treatment of Shelley Duvall. And I hate that, but I do like the movie. But I can understand why Stephen King, because Stephen King is such a generous person when it comes to his rights. Like, he doesn't have to sell these, but he does for people who are he loves creativity. So he sold his rights for one of his stories for $1, all because that person was so passionate and so wanting to create something out of his world that he have it. There you go. Give us $1. We're done. And to have his work shit upon in a way, because Kubrick, let's face it, didn't even follow half the source material.
No, I don't know what Kubrick was doing. I don't know. I think it was a case like we talked about in other movies where different parties are thinking the movie's going to be different things. So, you know, the actors think it's a serious, hard drama. Yeah. The director thinks it's a sci-fi thriller. The studio thinks it's a horror movie. The writer knows exactly what it is, but you don't get a say in anything, you know. So I think sometimes there's too many egos get involved and people aren't prepared to step back. And it's not until X amount of time later, like with Kubrick, X amount of later, he stepped back and he was like, I hate this film. I hate it. And Stephen King steps back and goes, well, that's not my book. I don't know what this is. It's not my book. I'm glad it's successful. And I'm glad it's got people to read my book, but it's not my book, you know. But
many years down the line, you will get the sequel by the great Mike Flanagan as
I enjoyed it.
I fucking loved it. The only thing I hated about it was that the Shining people, Rose in the Hat, Rose, whatever her name is.
Rose the Hat,
Rose the Hat, and her gang. How fucking interesting they were, and they barely got any fucking time. That's the only gripe I have with that film, is that they had it fucking golden right there, and they just didn't spend enough time with it. And she is fucking phenomenal as a character.
Rebecca.
And that was I know who she is. I
Rebecca
know.
something, isn't it?
Rebecca, yeah. She was in The Greatest Showman. She's the one who doesn't
Yeah, she
sing.
was, yeah.
She doesn't.
The mimes to another lady, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she was the character itself was just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, they just didn't spend enough time on it. But Mike Flanagan's got a new TV show out right now.
Today, House of Usher.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to give that a go at some point this weekend, I think. But
as long as someone tells me that no cats get murdered in it, I will be watching it because I have not watched Midnight Mass yet.
Nor have I. I haven't watched that. I've had it spoiled, but I still want to see it. But I haven't got the mental fortitude to have to be in it. And Mike Flanagan stuff, a movie I can deal with, hour and a half, 2 hours max. You're done. Yeah. But a series with Mike Flanagan, you've got to be in it.
You've got to be invested
100%. Otherwise, you miss so much stuff. And I'm not there with Midnight Mass. I'm not.
Mentally, I will never be sitting ready to watch that because I can't deal with animals and in death. And I've only been managed to do this because I always knew what happened to Churchill.
Yeah.
Always. I've got to say, mine, I know we've not touched on the 2019 one. I loved the press lead up to this, the media lead up to the 2019 one. I followed along with it. I followed little Churchill the cat as he was going off to his premieres, and poor little thing passed away a year later. But he was a stunning, striking. I think it was a Maine Coon. He was big enough to be one. He was fucking beautiful. And his little tux that he wore, and he was so sweet. But I did like all the press and the lead up to it. And again, I think the aesthetic of it is absolutely beautiful. I love the color, and that is kind of like my idea of where horror is now. When I'm thinking of colors and I'm thinking of, the sceneries, that's where I like where we're at with it. And I think the prequel had a lot of that same kind of grainy-ish, that I can't really describe it.
It has an atmosphere to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the 2019 one didn't do bad. I'd say it did pretty bloody good, to be honest, at the box office. It had a budget of 21 million.
Mm-hmm.
And at the box office, it took 133 million. So that isn't still more than Scream 2. So,
It was Scream 2. We're really shitting on this tonight.
But my point of reference is that this film, people slate the 2019, but yet the money is in the box office, proves otherwise.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right.
And it's the only thing I just, as I said before, it's my third in the list because I don't like the use of Ellie instead of Gage. Yeah. That's my...
I don't like that aspect to it. I think it's more... There's more punch in Gage's death than there would be using Ellie.
Yeah.
More punch in it. Have you got anything else before we wrap this bad boy up? I have thoroughly enjoyed talking about this. My head has been in bits in it, but I loved it.
I've just got a quote from Stephen King that he said, and it's about the book itself. And he said, I can only sum it up by saying this. And he said, perhaps sometimes dead is better, is grief's last lesson. It suggests that in the end, we can only find peace in our human lives by accepting the will of the universe. That may sound like corny new age crap, but the alternative looks to me like a darkness too awful for such mortal creatures as us to bear.
Wow. We will end it right there. That really does sum it all up.
Yep.
That is so fucking good. See, this is why he's as good as he is. Yeah, we will end it on that one because I really like that. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I didn't know how I was going to feel about just doing Pet Sematary because when I said at the beginning, who is the monster? We don't know. That it really is for you to decide.
I know who it is. It's Lewis. For me, Lewis is the monster. He doesn't learn his lesson and he repeats the same mistakes. It's not the burial ground. It's the person putting them in the ground. Yeah. So
but you can make your own mind up.
Yes, you can.
But because this film has, and this book and films have such a way of making you flip flop around in your head. It has with me. It's like at the beginning of this, I was like, no, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have to do it. And then halfway through, as we're talking, I'm like, oh well, I can kind of see their point. Like because it gets you into. It was such a good conversation about like where do your morals lie.
Yeah, mortality.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
morals and
morality
mortality.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing to be faced with your own mortality, and I think that this movie just has a way of bringing life right up to your face and going, "Ooh, we're not gonna spare anyone here, old, young, animal. You're getting the lot here." You know, you're slapped in the face by just this amount of like
literally Gage was slapped in the face
with a truck. It's the grief, the level of grief that you're faced to deal with, secondhand grief, because obviously you're watching it through the person. But then, like you say, with the ability of a grief-stricken person to bring these people back. But like I say, it's the Einstein quote, isn't it? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to this story.
Oh, absolutely. I have so fucking loved doing this. It's made me have a whole different perspective on Pet Sematary. I liked it to start with. I fucking love it. Like, I really have. Like, I didn't get a chance to watch it again, the original again, because I couldn't fucking find a link for it for shit. But just watching the new one, watching the prequel was... It just sparks everything back into place, like as in because you're reliving Judd's story, which is what you know, and it's like you know, even though you know what's going to happen, it still doesn't prepare you for what's about to happen. I thoroughly if you've stuck around with this and you've not seen it, I do highly recommend going watching it. It is a little hidden gem that has come out this year. And against, you know, we've got big hitters like The Exorcist Believer, and we've got Saw X and Evil Dead Rise coming out earlier in the year, and Scream. This is like just come out of fucking nowhere for me. Like, really has.
Yeah, under the radar, because it's literally gone straight to Paramount Plus. So it didn't get a theatrical release like all of those movies. So they know what they're doing, I think, because
I think they do.
They've probably tripled their their subscription for people, but I do think that people are just so willing to tank things these days that they don't even give it a chance.
Yeah.
And it's not a reboot, it's not a rehash, it's not a remake. This is a prequel. And it's the prequel that explains a lot of things, but also, like you say, puts a lot of things into question. Knowing more about Judd.
Exactly. Knowing what Judd knows then, what Judd has been through, to what he then does later. And it's like so many things that are like going through your head as you're trying to figure out why he would. But that is the genius part about fandism and nerdism and pop culture, is that you can keep having these fucking conversations until the end of time. Or till you're dead.
Or till the end of this podcast.
Yeah. Till then. Yeah. Well, that was great. I really have enjoyed that. We don't know what we're doing for the next one. I have no idea. For the next few weeks, you are just going to be on tender hooks, and we will have to tell you as and when it comes out.
Yeah, because I'm a pain in the ass.
She's not. She's not. She's really not having a well-deserved break. But we are fitting in things, so our spot is still there, so nobody takes it. Don't take our spot.
How dare you?
So yes, next one will be whatever it is I tell you when we either in the chat or by promotional work.
Yes.
If you can, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like this video, share it with your friends, share it with your mum, share it with your dad, share it with your granddad. Because granddads are the best. Also, yes, he's on your arm like forever. If you don't want to or don't listen to us on YouTube, you could, or watch us on YouTube, you can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. We are there. You can give us a heart. You can ask us a question. You can leave us a comment. You can write us a review. You can even go back and download and listen to some old classics like Pennywise or The Invisible Man.
Or The Thing.
Or The Thing.
Or Going Back, The Predator. Or Going Back, The Creature. We've got loads.
We've got loads of monsters that you could go back and rehash and just enjoy. Just enjoy. What else? That's it.
That's it.
Is that it?
Done did.
Done it? Is that it? Like, shared, subscribed.
iTunes and
back catalogue.
Spotify.
We're on Monday. We're back on Monday.
Yes.
We're back on Monday. Monster Mondays on YouTube at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Yeah, that's it. Wow, that seemed pretty short. Like the ending, I can normally drag that one out, but hey. Oh well. Sometimes dead is better. I don't know if I'll ever stop saying that.
No, never. Never.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it as much as we did, and we'll see you next time. Stay nerdy, everyone. Bye.